prairie raises certain boys the way wind raises grass, quietly, constantly. Until one day everyone noticed his height. Samuel Bass came up that way, Kentucky first. Then Texas, Denton County, where fence posts learn patience and creek crossings grade a man on balance more than on boots. Orphaned early, he made kin out of work, freighting cedar, hauling stone, learning how a mule answers questions it believes are honest. He didn't hurry his sentences. He saved hurry for horses. And then he met a bay mare whose feet understood arithmetic, how many strides across a pasture, how much breath to spend early, how to hide a second gear until the fence post most men use as a finish line has gone by. They called her simply the Denton mare, and Sam rode her like to thoughts agreeing. County fairs know the value of a fast animal, so do men with side bets and a talent for pretending surprise. Sam learned to smile while other men lost money and to shake hands without keeping score where it showed. He liked laughter. He liked company. He liked the road that returns you to the same porch with better stories than you left with. Work stretched. Wages didn't. Country after the war was a patchwork of chances disguised as errands. Sam stacked small coins into small dreams and found the pile never tall enough to see over. A partner here. A trail job there. The tin cup of a young man as life in a county that was learning to be permanent. He was not made for quarrels. He was made for movement, and movement, in those years, had learned a new rhythm, iron wheel speaking timetables into towns that used to sleep. When the moon asked them to, Sam watched trains the way a horse watches weather, not with malice, with curiosity and a sense that the day had changed its gait. He did not yet know he would chase that sound and then be chased by it, for now there was a fast mare. A grin the blacksmith remembered, and a circle of friends who could turn a slow evening into a small holiday with a fiddle, and a deck of cards, partners, the long road north, and a gold flash in Nebraska. A cattle job becomes a convoy of plans. A man named Collins counts. Possibilities. Rails at Big Springs learn the grammar of stopping. Trails north teach miles in a different accent. Heat builds quietly. Dust signs its name to shirts. The sky practices distances until a man either learns patience or talks too much to cover not having learned. Sam went cowboy for a season up the long line from Texas toward Kansas, toward the railheads. He met men whose names the ledger keeps in the song stretch, Joel Collins, Jack Davis. Others whose laughter shows up in memory even when their surnames don't. Freight cattle and side schemes braid together on those roads. By the time the group angled northwest beyond where their pay had planned to end, they had decided that the great machine of money moved faster on iron than on hoof. Nebraska night. At Big Springs, lanterns like punctuation marks. A Union Pacific train cooling from speed. The story has been told in tall versions and measured ones. Keep the measured one here. Men stepped from the dark with controlled voices. A conductor read new instructions written at gunpoint. A safe was introduced to daylight and then, relieved of its burden, $60,000 and $20 gold pieces by one count, a number the newspapers preferred because it fit nicely in type and in legend. No passengers hurt, no heroics required, just a clean cut in the timetable where a paragraph had insisted on being long. The gang scattered south like quail flushed by the same dog, shares packed into saddlebags. Plans that sounded good at a campfire began to argue with mornings. Collins did not live to enjoy the math. Kansas and its sheriffs and the kind of luck that changes its name at noon closed his ledger early. Others fell. Sam went quiet. He had money and a map with a hole in it where caution should be. Home tugs even when home gossips. Denton asked questions softly. Sam answered softly back. He spent openly enough to be noticed and gently enough to be liked. But coin is weighty. It bends intentions. A circle forms, half friendship, half enterprise, new partners who hear music in the clank of a cash box and learn the harmonies quickly. Texas trains now, shorter runs, closer law. Familiar trees that would not always be friendly at night. Texas rails, rangers on the wind, and letters that leak plans, a depot at Mesquite, another near Allen. Headlines that run faster than horses. The man named Murphy writing both sides of the conversation. Texas rails make a different sound. Short hauls, stations that smell like coffee and creosote. Guards less patient, passengers more nosy. Sam's new outfit learned the choreography, flag the train, separate the engine, whisper instructions the crew preferred to obey, open the box that mattered, leave watches and rings on passengers because goodwill is a currency too when you plan to be famous and alive. Mesquite heard it first, Ellen next. Other names came and went like fence posts counted from a galloping saddle. No massacres, no theater, just quick arithmetic at gunpoint and riders vanishing along creek bottoms a deputy's horse hated. Texas Rangers dislike repetition when it belongs to other men. Major John B. Jones took the case, like a man takes a sick horse, with tenderness for the animal and no pity for the fever. He scattered detachments the way seed is scattered before a hard rain. Inside the gang, a man named Jim Murphy learned to live with two loyalties that refused to share a table. Illness in the family, pressure from law, promises on paper that smelled like ink, and salvation. He began to write letters, where to stand, when to ride, which bank looked persuadable. He sent them to Jones, and they rode back into camp as bad luck wearing boots. Sam kept joking. He kept being kind at tables and careful with strangers. He was not cruel by habit. He was stubborn by nature. The circle tightened anyway. Ossamen grew out of the mesquite like new branches. Deputies stopped napping. Telegraphs learned to whistle faster. Plan formed for a bank at Round Rock. It would be broad daylight, which is either smart because men doubt their own eyes at noon, or foolish because noon owns everything in town. The letters knew before half the gang did. Rangers and local law read the script, chose seats in the theater, and waited for actors who did not know the audience had loaded its applause with bullets. Round Rock noon, smoke in the street, and the last ride, a deputy's warning, a pistol that answers. Sebring Barnes falling, Sam bleeding toward a birthday he would not keep. July heat makes tools heavy. Round Rock carried that weight quiet until men with hats to low walked into town. A hardware store noticed first. Bullets bought, questions asked with the wrong politeness. Deputy A. W. Grimes stepped into son that didn't love him for it. Words, hands, a shot. Grimes down. Citizens to cover. Rangers stepping from shade where they had been spelling patience. Gunfire edits a street fast. Sebring Barnes fell hard enough to make the dust remember. Sam took lead too, not enough to stop motion, enough to start the end. Frank Jackson, loyal, young, pulled his friend from the worst of it, carried him the way brothers do when pride finally agrees to be cargo. They made daylight into distance across low ground that holds heat like a basin. Pursuit fanned out in the old, efficient way, men who knew the creek beds. Horses that knew where a wounded rider would have to rest. By morning, the country near a cedar break woke to whispers. Sam Bass lay near the track, breathing in the careful, shallow way men do when breath hurts. Frank stayed until staying became a verdict, then went because a live man can carry a story farther. Found, carried to town, questioned as gently as circumstances allowed. Sam answered in the voice of a man who has decided neither to brag nor to betray. Some names he would not say, some he could not recall through the throb. July 21st, his birthday by the counts people keep when years are short. He died. No makeup for the legend. Just a quiet room, a window. Men taking off their hats because death remains the one thing a wild century did not turn into entertainment. Ballads, ledgers, and the road handed forward. Songs at campfires. Ranger reports filed in neat hands. A young outlaw smile folded into the nation's scrapbook. And a train headed west where a lawman in a long coat will soon own the room. Pantry made 2 piles out of Sam Bass. One is paper, warrants, telegrams, reports with margins annotated by men who were tired and thorough. The other is music, verses about poker games and gold coins, about birthdays and bullets, about a boy who laughed easily and met a hard noon. Both piles are true in their own way. In the ledgers he is a pattern the Rangers finally broke. In the songs he is a grin on a fast horse, more wind than trouble, more myth than arithmetic. Denon kept its own memories, a mare who ran like shorthand for joy, a young man who tipped his hat so cleanly mothers didn't mind him calling their sons by first name. Round Rock kept the other kind stone, names on it, shadows at noon when the anniversary comes around and the town decides whether to speak or just sweep the boardwalks a little earlier that day. Major Jones's reports live in boxes that smell like old glue and patience. They tell a quieter story about informants who folded, about deputies who kept their posts, about a young outlaw who didn't hate so much as he hurried. What do we keep at bedtime? The cadence more than the noise. A reminder that charm without caution is a bad traveling companion. that trains bring timetables and timetables bring responsibility. And men who test either may find the country has learned speed too. For a long river of western lives, Sam's riffle leads into smoother water that gathers power again, not with outlaws now, but with a lawman who learned in cowdowns how to stand still, until a whole street remembered its manners. Wyatt Earp, Dodge City, Tombstone, a long coat, a tight jaw. Family line walking into a photograph and then into the kind of hearing that never adjourns in American memory. We will meet him as we have met the rest, chronologically enough to respect cause and effect, softly enough to sleep afterward. The pause is where the past asks us not to turn justice into a costume,